Good evening and welcome to TGP2 live in Abu Dhabi for rounds 11 and 12, where you are joining us in what can only be described as an extraordinary event where we have Chris Johnson coming across the line to set his fastest lap time. And if you notice it carefully, on the intermediate tyres at a wet Abu Dhabi race. I'm joined in the commentary box here with Dan the man. He's rejoining us in the commentary box tonight. Staple of TGP, sitting third on the all-time TGP1 victories list. And if Dan doesn't know anything or something about TGP, then it isn't worth knowing. So welcome, Dan. What do you think of these, quite frankly, surprising and extraordinary conditions here in TGP2 tonight?
Well, it's crazy. I mean, we've got a difference in tyres. Some are out on softs, some are trying to still brave it round on softs. We've got some on inters. Right to say, Chris Johnson has just gone quickest on the intermediate tyres. We started the session with everybody rushing out on soft tyres while it was raining, and now, as I say, we're slowly seeing drivers on inters, although some are starting to stay with softs. But I was going to say that, after last week, tonight's races at Abu Dhabi and Bahrain, after last week, probably the drivers were probably hoping to have two nice dry races and two dry qualifying sessions, but obviously not. We've just turned up in Abu Dhabi in a big pouring rain.
It is, yeah, and we're actually following on board with Saya Sports here on an outlap on some soft tyres. Obviously, Chris Johnson has gone quickest, 3/10 quicker than the fellow soft runner of Jack Craig. So it'll be interesting to see what Saya Sports here can pull off on those soft tyres. We actually have Daniel P. Wheelnut and MShep94, Mick Schumacher as well, and Jacko on outlaps on the soft. So a bit of a mixed grid here. Maybe Chris Johnson just trying to see. Getting a feeler for what he's experiencing out on the track there and seeing what the quicker tyre is. But yeah, let's stay with Saya Sports here to start his lap.
Just Jack Craig, he is just coming around the final couple of corners, and he is on the soft tyres and he's 2/10 up. So it looks like it is really no difference at the minute between the inters and the softs. And Jack Craig got it on pole by hundredth of a second, and
wow.
that shows the gap between the first and second on two totally different tyre compounds.
Unbelievable. I just don't know what the... normally us as commentators, we have a good idea as to what tyres people should be on at this point. I'd say Sports sets the fastest Sector 1 nearly 3/10 quicker than Jack Craig, so looks like the soft tyre is still doing pretty well here, but it'd be interesting to see what the likes of Mr. John and Bazza are doing on the intermediates at the moment. But we're going to stick on board here with Say Sports as he is coming up to the end of the first straight, and let's see what his braking's like going through these set of corners and how much grip he does have. He does miss that first apex and runs a little bit wide, but maybe... Oh goodness me, as Lewis Craig actually sets a faster lap time at 1:32.6. But yeah, we're going to stick with Saya Sports here. Had a bit of a squirrely S section there, but he's coming up to this long left-hander, which will really be a tell for how much grip the drivers do have out on the track at the moment, and seems to be taking it not overly cautious, so maybe he just made a slight mistake going through that S section between the two straights there. But yeah, Saya Sports in the third sector now. It'll be interesting to see what his time is going to be, but relatively looking okay with grip here, Dan.
Yeah, I think he's probably picked it up a little bit in this final sector, but definitely that wobble, it cost him quite a bit of time. But we'll see where he goes. He comes down the final corner now. See if we can maybe get into the top 5 at this stage. No, in fact, it's only a small improvement, and he jumps up into 9th place. So we've got Chris Johnson back in the pit lane now, and he obviously was on the inters. Everybody out on track right now is on soft tyres, aside from Kaya, who is on the inters, as Mike Noon goes spinning in 12th place. I'm just trying to see if we've got any improvements going on. We've got Wheelnut coming through the final couple of corners here, and it looks like he's about to improve. He's on the softs. Can he get himself up there? Yeah, of course, he is now effectively in a championship fight because he's so close now to second place in the championship, and he goes into 4th.
Yes, he does, and it's a good point you actually raised the championship there, because the championship is getting ever closer. Obviously, the drivers' championship between first and second is coming down. I think the gap is now 17 points between the top two drivers, but it's the constructors where it's really heating up. 3 points cover the top 3 in the constructors in TGP2. So, yeah, I mean, do you think we're going to see a bit more of like a grand finale when it comes to the final race here, with the points getting ever so close between the constructors and the drivers now, effectively, as that's coming down as well, Dan?
Oh, definitely. I mean, like I say, 3 teams in the constructors fight, and then you got pretty much a four-way battle now in the Drivers' Championship. I've got to say, I was watching the races last week, and Wet Lemons again. I can't believe he threw away really two decent results. I mean, he should be closer, or maybe even leading this championship. I think personally, it's just been it was unbelievable to watch that last week. Say his sport's about to improve, and he goes into sixth place. But yeah, Wet Lemons, he spun, didn't he, in the Netherlands, and then he made that late pit stop in Spa, which wasn't. I don't really know. I didn't really gain him much really at all. In fact, I think he lost a couple of positions from it, but. He should be leading this championship, I think, in my opinion, right now. But Lewis Craig leads it by 17 points, and he's also on provisional pole position here. Wet Lemons are still only down in seventh, and he says right now that he's selected the Inters. He's still in the pit lane, but right now it looks like he's looking to go out on the Inters. But I mean, who knows how this quality session could end up? Jacko just got into second. Anybody could be on pole here.
Indeed, it's interesting to see Wet Lemons down in eighth place, considering his wet performance last week was really, really strong. So maybe he is opting for a dry setup. I've been told by the people in my ears that we are going to get a dry race here in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, as well, as I mentioned on commentary last week, the safety car has been enabled by the stewards for Abu Dhabi as well. So not only have we got a wet qualifying, we've got a dry race, and we've got the safety car to throw up the mix here. So it could be anybody's game, really. As it always could be in TGP2, but even more so with the fact that we've got the safety car, Dan, as we do actually watch Jacko take a very interesting line through there, nearly almost damaging his car. I hope he hasn't put any damage on his car doing that, but an interesting one here. But we've got Wet Lemons on an out lap on the Inters, Dan.
Yeah, so obviously, you know, the only other driver up there on the Inters is Chris Johnson, who's had that 32.8, which is only 2/10 off the pole lap, but Wet Lemons is a further half-second back from that. But Wet Lemons obviously choosing to go onto the intermediate tyres. He feels like that's the right tyre to be on at this stage. It's looked incredibly close for the entire session, really. Impossible, really, to say what the best tyre choice is right now. But we'll see then. This Wet Lemons lap is quite important, I would say. I think Jacko's out of fuel. So I've got Jake Davis, who's in sixth place, who's slightly further ahead around the lap, but he's 1.2 seconds off. So I think for this Wet Lemons lap, it's really important to 2.5 minutes to go in the session.
Indeed. So we're going to stick on board with Wet Lemons as we do. We want to see what his Inter performance is around here. He seems to be taking it relatively cautiously, and the rain still is coming down. So the track we expect will get wetter and wetter as he's only 1700s up on his previous best. So maybe the track has lost its ultimate fast pace within this session, but let's stick on board with him. He's staying right to the right-hand side of this straight, maybe trying to find that extra wet line so that his tyres don't overheat throughout the lap. But coming up to the braking zone, let's see how his performance is through this S section. He looks like he clips the first part nicely, clips the second part nicely as well, and doesn't go too wide, but he gets a bit out of shape coming out of there, but nicely over. And obviously, is DRS enabled for this? No, DRS seems to be disabled at the moment due to the wet conditions, but Sector 2 time, he's a 10th.5 up and gets a purple Sector 2 time. So really, really doing well in performance. Nice and easy round this long left-hander that's new in this game. But he's coming round into the Marina section and gets a little bit wide now onto the curve there, but hopefully he doesn't lose too much time as he seems to have lost a bit of rhythm there. But going out wide, out onto those bits of text on the right-hand side, clip the corner nicely on the right, goes a little bit wide, but can be expected in the rain. Nicely, don't clip too much of this inside curb and let the car run out wide and stay to the left to get the fastest time. And what's it going to be? It's a 1:32.8 that takes him up to third place. So decent lap considering the conditions, and I'm sure he'll be happy with that on the Inters, Dan.
Yeah, it was a good lap apart from that one error there, really, as he was approaching the hotel. But he's put him in third place, I'd say, for the time being. I don't know. He's not going to go again. He's just slowed. He's just backed off there, and there's not enough time left in the session for him. So Lewis Craig is about to start his final lap. Jacko is not come back out, so he stayed in the box. He obviously thinks it's too wet at this stage now, so he is not going to set another lap in this session. Lewis Craig will though, and so will Jack Craig as well. So we'll see where both of those guys go. We also need to see where Wheelnut is going to go. He's also right in this championship fight now.
So yeah, we're on board with Lewis Craig to see what he's going to be like in these soft tyres, and he's 2.5 tenths down on his previous best. So maybe the soft tyre is not working as well as the Inters at this point, and the Inter runners may have the advantage come the end of the session. But we're going to stick on board and just see if it was a slight mistake in the first sector that maybe started that. So let's see how he does through this S section here after the first straight. He's able to clip the apex, but he looks to be running quite wide there through the first part of that S section and getting onto the curb, and he'll lose some time there. But goes down, staying nice and tight to that left-hand side, trying to minimise the track distance and try and gain some time. But he seems to have got a purple middle sector according to my screen. I'm not sure if that's a glitch, but he's still just over a tenth and a half down as he comes through the marina section. And what's he going to be like on the brakes here? Seems to be okay, and he clips that corner quite nicely, much better than Wet Lemons did through that section around under the hotel. Nicely on the curbs there, easing the throttle. He goes a little bit wide. Jack Craig goes to pole. We're on board with Lewis Craig, but Jack Craig takes pole at 132.5, and Lewis Craig, he seems to have backed out there. Off. And but the soft runners still looking to be strong here. So that's their sessions over. I'd say Sports coming through the final sector now. He clips that corner quite nicely and it goes quite wide, doesn't invalidate, luckily, quite nicely through there. Stay to the left to get the quickest time. What's it going to be? It's 7th place with a 133, only slight marginal improvement. And I believe Baza coming around to finish his lap as well. 14th for the 134.9, and IRT Kaya will be the last of the runners as he comes through the hotel section with those intermediate tyres on. He seems to be doing okay through here, but he hasn't validated his apologies. So that's our session over, Dan.
Yeah, so what a crazy session that was. But yeah, Jack Craig, I noticed to stay towards the end, he was really improving in the final sector, and he has just got pole ahead of his brother. So I'm not sure his brother will be too happy with that, but at least he is ahead of Wet Lemons. He will be thinking for the championship. But yeah, what an absolutely fascinating qualifying session. Difference in tyres. And look at that, even with those conditions, you got the top 10 separating by only a second.
Yeah, an incredible session and a great session as well for the Craig brothers. So let's run through your order. We've got Jack Craig on a 132.5 taking pole position. Lewis Craig just under a tenth behind, and Jacko rounding out your top three. Then we have Wet Lemons in fourth with Chris Johnson in fifth, Daniel P. Wheelnut in sixth, Say Sports in seventh with JD in eighth, Mike Noon in ninth, and Speed Sully rounding out your top 10. And then we have M. Shep, Mick Schumacher, Mr. John, Baza, Kaya, Angel vs. Death, and Bear Grylls rounding out the order. The last two not setting a time, but our highest intermediate runners were Wet Lemons and Chris Johnson, 2.5 tenths and 3 tenths behind the pace, respectively. Now, I mentioned before that it is going to be a dry race, but it'll be interesting to see what strategy the drivers will be on, considering there will be a safety car as well. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because in TGP1 we had drivers struggling from the restart and some drivers being caught off guard and actually receiving some penalties as well. So do you think the drivers tonight will experience a similar thing? And will we expect to see drivers holding on to their starting tyres to try and utilise the safety car in their race strategy? Or do you think they'll try and avoid eking out too much with that, Dan?
Well, I think it's probably best to start on soft here just in case you do get that early safety car. But yeah, as you say, we did have a few problems with the safety car last night. Let's just hope that if we do get one here, we don't have the same issue. But as you say, it's a dry race. Let's see what happens.
Indeed, as the drivers are making their final preparations as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights under the hazy sky in Abu Dhabi. And it's lights down, away we go. We've actually got a jump start there from M-Shep, and that's caused a bit of a trigger. But Jack Craig getting a decent start against his brother Lewis Craig there. It seems to be relatively clean throughout the field. We've got some lag there and some people going out wide. But that'll be interesting to see what M-Shep's going to have to do with his strategy now. As we look further down the line, we've got some medium runners, some soft tyre runners, and it looks all relatively clean there, Dan.
It was, yeah. Wet Craig tried sending one up at turn one. He's trying to send one here. And is he going to get past Lewis Craig? His championship rival, his main championship rival right now, are going to be side by side all the way down this straight. And who's going to be latest on the bridge here? And they're both gaining on Jacko in second place. They're going to have to try and avoid and make sure there's no sort of instance here. Is Lewis Craig going to... Is Wet Craig going to try and send the massive dive bomb? Oh, he's passed them all. And somehow he's made the corner. But Jack Craig's had to go off the track and he stays ahead and has to, I assume, give up positions there. So Jacko now leads. Wet Lemons is second. Lewis Craig down to fifth all of a sudden.
A Max Verstappen-esque dive bomb there from wet lemons, but it seems to have paid off. And I wonder if the stewards are going to look at that later in the session. But Jack Craig won't be happy with that, and I'm sure he's going to have to do what he can now to recover. He's only down in third place, luckily, but he does have the Ferrari with wing damage, actually, of JD behind him, who seems to be losing a lot of pace here and running quite wide through that hotel section. But yeah, wet lemons. Opportunistic move right on the back of Jacko here as we come into the second lap now. But we actually see Lewis Craig gain a position now on JD as Jacko does start the fastest lap of the race so far. And we do have some runners pitting and probably to get rid of their time penalties there, Dan.
Yeah, Jake Davis has pit, but the rest I think it's a save time penalties. But Wet Lemons has got so much pace right now. He is absolutely flying. He's going to have a go with Jacko here now. He's already seen him make one brave overtake. I think Jack Craig spun, and Jack Craig's out the race. Jack Craig, the pole sitter, is out of this race. Will this be a safety car? If it's not yet, it's not a major safety car. Either Wet Lemons is going to fly through here. He's using all of his energy. He has got so much pace. He's flying, and he's going to take the lead. And that's a much more easier overtake than the one he did previously. Will Jacko try and send one back at him down here? No, he will not. So Wet Lemons has gone from fourth to first in 2 laps. But I have to say, the move on the first lap was somewhat questionable. Maybe the stewards may take a look at that, but he is away and gone.
He is away and gone, and we didn't actually see Jack Craig coming out of crashing out of the race there, as we're on board with Jacko and Wet Lemons. But a great move there, as we do see Lewis Craig going quite wide out there in the background. Hopefully not any issues there, and Chris Johnson does take that place off him now after he did go so wide, and they actually side by side going through the hotel section, but Lewis Craig thinks better of it. And it's still very, very close between these drivers coming into the third lap, where DRS will be enabled for the race. And Daniel P. Wheelnut as well, right on the back there of Speed Sully. So plenty to race for as well. Lemons gets the fastest lap of the race, especially at the pace he's going. He doesn't want to stick around and wait for any safety car to try and gain some positions. He wants to get it done on the track. So, yeah, Mike Noon now on the back of Jacko. Jacko spun! Oh. He spun out of the race. I don't know what happened there. Maybe he got on the throttle too much, and he's got wing damage now. Unfortunate for him, because he was in a really good position running. So Mike Noon and Wet Lemons up in first and second place for Alfa Romeo. That's going to be fantastic for the constructors, Daniel.
How has Mike Noon jumped up into second place? This is unbelievable. Where's he come from?
Don't know where he's come from. He was pirouetting in qualifying, but he seems to be keeping it nice and stable on the rails in the race. So great there for the Alfa Romeo boys, and fantastic 1-2 for Wet Lemons and Mike Noon. They'll be happy with that. Lewis Craig is 9 tenths behind. He'll be getting DRS, hopefully. Not quite at this point of the race, but Chris Johnson has DRS, and then we've got Speed Sully going around the outside of Chris Johnson. Speed Sully trying to hang it out around the outside, but doesn't make it stick, and he will just be waiting there with Daniel P. Wheelnut as well for Chris Johnson to be close enough or to make a mistake. So still quite a lively race here. We didn't get a safety car, obviously, from Jack Craig out of the race, but that's not to say we won't get one later, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. But just incredible stuff by Mike Noon, who managed to get through Lewis Craig and Chris Johnson on that previous lap while we were watching the battle for the leads with Jacko and Wet Lemons. Mike Noon, it is a set Alfa Romeo 1-2, and Mike Noon's on the medium tyres as well. Wet Lemons is on the soft tyres, which might explain his pace at the moment, although even still, I have to say, I think he just seems to be so much quicker right now than everybody else. As Jacko comes into the pit lane, probably to replace the front wing, of course, after the crash earlier, as Chef set the fastest lap, which is interesting considering that he had to save the drive-through. So that makes you wonder if he also had some hidden pace, which sadly he might not be able to fully show off because of that drive-through earlier. But here comes Lewis Craig now. Look at this. Mike Noon tried to break the toe, but Lewis Craig is just going to breeze through, and he will go into second place then. Although Mike Noon will have the DRS in this second zone here. So Lewis Craig is going to have to try and get a good exit. But it's the top two in the championship who are now first and second. But second in the championship, ahead of first. Is Mike Noon going to come back at him now? But he's got the DRS open. He's using the DRS. Is he going to send one on the inside? Yes, he will. And he should go back into second place.
Yeah, Lewis Craig seemed to use his battery to get round him on the first part of that straight, and Mike Noon, the ever-experienced head in TGP2, uses his battery to get back at him and use that DRS as well, so he keeps the position for now. Chris Johnson also on the back of this as well. Speed Sully has started to drop off this train here with Daniel P. Wheelnut right on the back of him as well, so plenty of action going on up and down the field. As we also see Angel versus Death there on screen, right behind Blair Grills too. So plenty to keep an eye on here. We'll stay on board with Chris Johnson at the moment, as he seems to be the closest at the moment and the one who could potentially make a move here. But not to say Lewis Craig is out of the battle here with Mike Noon. Lap 5 in this race so far. We've seen a couple of people pit at the moment. Not sure what the tyres are looking like at the moment, but yeah, still plenty of action here and a potential safety car coming soon. Dan?
Yeah, well, a safety car right now would be pretty disastrous for Mike Noon, for Lewis Craig, Chris Johnson, Speed Sully. It'd be disastrous for all those guys because they are all on the medium tyres. They'd have to do a pretty long stint on the softs to the end of the race. But Wet Lemons, even if he is now a safety car at this point, he'd be laughing, really. I think he is in a fantastic position, although we've said that in some other races previously this season, and it hasn't ended well for him, as you've got the two Aston Martins doing battle here for over 9th place. They're going side by side into the twisty section, and M-Chef stays ahead. Meanwhile, up towards the front, we've got Lewis Craig closing in, getting closer once again to Mike Noon.
Yeah, just on board with these Astons as Blair Grills has the soft tyres and he goes round the outside of his teammate. Round the outside here, doesn't have the traction, unfortunately, to go round, but he is on the soft tyres and does have a bit of an advantage when it comes to running round here and having that extra grip. But yeah, plenty of racing going on up and down the field. As I said, we're going to go back with Lewis Craig, and this guy goes, Chris Johnson's right on the back of Lewis Craig as well. I can't keep track as to who to track here at the moment, but we'll stick with this one for the moment, as Lewis Craig looks like he's pushing Mike Noon around this section here. So yeah, Mike on the mediums as well, so no tyre delta here to monitor, but we've got a DRS zone coming up in a minute, Dan.
Well, this could be a bit of a replay of what we saw a couple of laps ago, where Lewis Craig gets past Mike Noon here, and then Mike Noon tries to get back past in the second DRS zone, and once again, Mike Noon massively trying to break the toe, and yet, once again, it's going to be an easy move, most likely, for Lewis Craig. Well, although Chris Johnson fancy goes well now, he's too far back, and is Mike Noon going to just shape up now to do the exact same thing he done a couple of laps ago? They're actually gaining slightly on Wet Lemons here. I don't know if Wet Lemons is just trying to take it easy a little bit now, because he's got such a lead, or maybe he's starting to lose a bit of tire grip at this stage on those softs. Mike Noon isn't going to come back for Lewis Craig. It's going to be a bit more difficult this time, but he still sends it, and he still makes the move. Lewis Craig, I think, had to think of his championship there, and decided to sort of back out of that. He did not want to make any sort of contact there.
It's a hell of a dive bomb there from Mike Noon. It was fantastic to watch that on board as Mick Schumacher gets our first 3-second time penalty of the race. But yeah, a fantastic use of the battery and the DRS to get that extra slingshot going through that corner. And we saw Chris Johnson as well closing up on that corner as well, but seemed to have to have backed out of it. Yeah, 1.7 seconds separates Wet Lemons and Mike Noon, as Wet Lemons has actually come in now to the pits to start his change in strategy of the tyres. So that'll be interesting to see where he's going to come out and where these drivers will come out and how strong the undercut will be around Abu Dhabi. But yeah, Chris Johnson now, as we've got a yellow sector one.
Chris Johnson
has spun. Chris Johnson has spun. It was a terrible camera angle because I was actually on board with him, but he has spun. So those mediums could be losing their traction there, Dan.
Such a shame for Chris Johnson, and that's probably game over for him for any sort of competitive result tonight, as Wet Lemons comes out the pit lane in 7th place. And Lewis Craig and Mike Noon are once again side by side here. They're still doing battle. And Lewis Craig, again, at this DRS zone, gets back ahead for the 3rd time in this race. Now, will for the 3rd time Mike Noon go for it, although he nearly has a wobble there and loses quite a bit of time. And Steve Sully makes the game on him, but no, he's recovered it. And Mike Noon is right back behind Lewis Craig. And for the 3rd time in this race, Mike Noon gets back past, and he leads the race into that long left-hander. And he is back in the lead, or back ahead of Lewis Craig at least, for the 3rd time.
Yeah, and this is actually starting to bring Speed Sully now into the mix now, as these two drivers are fighting cat and dog up and down those straights. As Lewis Craig gets incredibly close to the back of Mike Noon there. Not sure what happened there with Mike Noon, if he had a bit of a moment through that corner. We've got this great helicopter shot showing the drivers fighting here. But yeah, Lewis Craig and Mike Noon seem to have very similar battery levels at the moment, according to their steering wheels, as I was on board with them. But yeah, it's a great fight to see, and fantastic to see constant battle between them, Dan.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, considering how much battling they've been doing. They've actually kept the battery life at a decent enough level. Or, I mean, 40% for Lewis Craig, 29% for Mike Noon, but it's not like, it's not down into like single digits. So fair play to them on that. And are we going to once again see the same thing here? Lewis Craig, I think he's a bit further back this time round, and he's not actually using his battery now either. So maybe he's realised and thought, maybe I'll wait for the second DRS zone. I think that's what's happened, you know. I think he's realised that maybe the second DRS zone is...
Oh, is he contact with Mike Noon? He's made contact, he's lost his front wing! Sorry to interrupt there, Dan, he's lost his front wing. Not sure what was happening there. Maybe Mike Noon trying to back him up during the corner, but this has brought Speed Sully right into it. Say Sports is right on the back of this as well. It's going to be very, very close, and he's going to have that loss of downforce through this corner and managed to keep the position, but we've got Say Sports right on the outside there, going wide, trying to make a move around the outside, and it all seems to be same order as we're going through this section, Dan. Sorry to interrupt there.
Well, will Lewis Craig feel the need to change his front wing? He's going to struggle horribly, especially in this final sector, as will he pit on this lap? It's still a bit of a long way to go on the soft tyres.
He does pit, he does.
Coming in, so I assume he will have to change his front wing, so a disaster for the championship leader. But I tell you what, Will Evans' teammate may well have just helped them quite a lot in the championship.
Indeed, as Will Evans is 13 seconds behind this gaggle of cars at the moment, 14 seconds behind the lead. So Wet Lemon's looking in a great position at the moment to retake the lead when these drivers make their pit stop, provided that there's not a safety car to help these drivers with a cheap stop. But
he hasn't changed his front wing. So he's pit quite early, really, for soft tyres. That's a long way to go now in soft tyres for the rest of this race. He comes out the pit lane in 7th place, so he's actually been jumped by JD at this stage. So he's down into... JD pitted early on, didn't he? He pitted on the first lap, didn't he? So he's actually managed to jump him, and he's got he's got half of a ring now, really, Lewis Craig, and he's going to have to try and fight his way back through.
He is, and we're going to actually go on board with Lewis Craig here as he is close to overtaking JD. JD seems to have the DRS there from Daniel P. Wheelnut in front. JD does have a time penalty. I'm not sure what the time penalty is there. So Lewis Craig, even if it stays as it is at the moment, will get past him in the standings at the end of the race. But yeah, we're going to go back on board with Say Sports. This gaggle of cars at the front, still nice and close, and some great battling between them as well. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see when they do pit. I think they're all on the mediums, and Say Sports and Speed Sully come into the pits now.
So Mike Noon will have a bit of breathing space there. There will be once again be an Alfa Romeo 1-2 for the time being. But this is played brilliantly for Daniel P. Wheelnut as well, who has also managed to jump Lewis Craig and is now in a net 2nd place. So the two championship rivals really for Lewis Craig, Daniel P. Wheelnut and Wet Lemons, who are both trying to gain them in the championship. They may well finish 1-2 in this race. And I'm not sure where Lewis Craig will finish. Lewis Craig's come back in the pit lane, and now he's changing his front wing. So what's the first time maybe it didn't change the wing, and he was hoping to change it. The game hasn't changed it for Lewis Craig, and he's had to make a second stop. He's going to lose the championship lead if it stays like this.
His race is going from bad to worse. And speaking of going from bad to worse, JD has now jumped Speed Sully and Sayer Sports as well after making that first lap pit stop. So the undercut very, very strong here by the looks of things. And Daniel P. Wheelnut up into 3rd place, not a net 3rd at the moment as he's still on those medium tyres, but maybe trying to wait out for that safety car to see if he can take full advantage of that, and could well be a safety car later on in the stage. Hopefully not too late in the stage. He'll have to pit at some point. But Wet Lemons, 10.1 seconds behind his teammate Mike Noon, who's still to pit and in a very commanding position to take the lead of the race after he does pit, Dan.
Yeah, so Jake Davis, I'd say he pits on lap 1. He's going to go on those medium tyres now to the end, but you would imagine he's going to have Speed Sully and Space Sports flying here, and he's got Speed Sully right behind him now. So I imagine on these fresh softs he should be able to get through as Mike Noon finally comes into the pit lane then, and Wet Lemons is going to take the lead of this race. And if it was to stay like this, with Wet Lemons winning and Lewis Craig down in 12th, he would take the lead of this championship going into, round 11. So incredibly close championship, a fantastic battle, and this has really added to it even further as we see the two Ferraris very close now. Mike Noon coming out the pit lane. Where's he going to come back out? He's going to come back out in 6th place, Mike Noon, and he'll also be flying on soft tyres now as well. So Jake Davis might have quite a bit of defending still over the next few laps.
Speed Sully
very wide
inside,
here,
yeah.
And Speed Sully gets the position.
Maybe he was trying to get the DRS there, but Speed Sully does have that
Yeah.
DRS.
Oh,
and
what
we've
did you say?
spots going up here, weaving between the Ferraris, and manages to take the position for now. Will Speed Sully come back at him? He dives up the inside, trying to get that corner. Can't see USA Sports. USA Sports very close, and JD at the back of him, but not great camera angles here from the broadcast. But Say Sports does have that DRS on JD and flies past him. And is he going to try and fly past Speed Sully now, round the outside or something? He does brake later, but he's not close enough. Speed Sully is on the softs as well, so close, hopefully on tire. Yeah, they pitted at the same time, so close on tyres here. And this battle is far from over, Dan.
Yeah, this could be some battle. This for the final podium position at this stage, and let's not forget Mike Noon, who will also be catching up. Surely, you would imagine on those fresh soft tyres. He's just took half a second out of JD in 2 corners there. So he will be coming through as well. But Say Sports, wow, he was absolutely flying down that straight, wasn't he, there with the DRS and with the ERS at the same time. Wet Lemon's got a 5.6 second lead out front, with Wheelnut in second place. They are looking fairly well set, you would say. As he spun, Speed Sully spun.
Speed Sully's round. He's lost his front wing as well. Oh, what a shame for the Ferrari driver there. He was running so well on those brand new softs, and it looks like he just took too much power through that long right-hand section, or the second corner even, sorry. And that's an unfortunate event for him there, where Mike Noon now right on the back of JD weaving up and down this straight. I'm sure the stewards will take a look at that, because that is not something that we want to see in TGP2, as Mike Noon almost touches the back of JD, but he's going to get a great drive here out now on those soft tyres. And JD taking a very, very wide approach out there wide. He seems to be going across the track a bit more, but Mike Noon is going to breeze past here with that DRS and a bit of use of battery as well. And that looks to be a done deal for Mike Noon. There's a little bit, looked to be a little bit of contact there, but Mike Noon has come out of that on top. And JD, despite all of his weaving, hasn't been able to keep him behind, Dan.
Well, it was an interesting decision to pit on the first lap by JD, and actually, just having a check there, he did change his front wing, so it actually wasn't strategic. He had to pit on the first lap, and he's done well to try and defend, but in the end, he is down into 5th place right now. But Mr. John running an excellent 6th place here, and it's 7 seconds out to JD, so it might be quite difficult to catch up at this stage, but. Let's have a check of the penalties then, and obviously it's 3 seconds each for Mike Noon and JD, but that wouldn't affect their finishing positions at all at this stage. Lewis, he's got a 3-second penalty, and he's currently in 10th place. In fact, he's side by side here with Blair Grills right now, and Blair Grills gets ahead, but
what a move!
Wide though, and Lewis Craig goes into 9th place then, so he's trying to salvage something in this race now, and will it be enough for him to hold on to his championship lead? We'll work out the points at the conclusion of this race. Wet Lemons has lost a lot of time all of a sudden. He's just made a bit of a mistake, but he's gone to 1.5 seconds all of a sudden.
He is, but we're on board with Chris Johnson. Sorry to interrupt. Chris Johnson takes Jacko on the straight there as he breezes past, goes quite wide through that first S section, and Jacko is going to come back at him here on the medium tyres. Jacko now, DRS wide open. He's going to use his battery as well. Chris Johnson seems to be using his battery and maybe running lower downforce, and Jacko is struggling to get around the outside of him. He's going to have to go around the long way. Will he be able to do it? He hangs it around the wide outside, but just doesn't have the traction there in order to get round him. So sorry to interrupt there, Dan.
Well, Wet Lemon's 5 seconds slower on this lap, so he must have made a mistake. That's the only possible thing that you could imagine. Obviously, he's obviously made some sort of error in the first sector and lost a chunk of time, and actually Wheelnut is not too far away now from being within DRS range, but you'd say it's still fairly comfortable just about for Wet Lemons, but obviously he must have had a bit of a heart-attack moment there. Jake Davis has spun on those medium tyres that he's been on since lap 1. That corner's been catching everybody out in this race, and he's only lost 1 position though, dropped down to 6th place. He's got Chris Johnson behind him, who's of course also had a spin at that corner in this race. Feels like half the field have had a spin at that corner in this race, but he's in 6th place. Chris Johnson may well be approaching though on those soft tyres with a couple of laps to go. Lewis Craig in 9th, and Jacko once again is very close to Chris Johnson as well, so maybe Jacko could also catch up to JD before the end of this race as well, and we might still have a battle for 6th place. But Wet Lemons now, yeah, fairly consistent 1.6 seconds. He's just got to hold on now for this final lap and not make any errors, and he will be, well, I assume be in a championship lead, but under the Jose point system, it might be quite close.
Daniel P. Wilnot is only 1.3 seconds behind Wet Lemons here. Wet Lemons may be struggling a bit in this final sector for some reason, as that seems to be where he's losing his time. Daniel P. Wilnot, will he go for a do-or-die moment here to try and take the win, considering what that could do for his championship as well? But 1.4 seconds, 1.5 seconds now. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do anything from behind there, but let's just keep an eye on that one. We're going to go on board with Jacko, who Chris Johnson goes very wide there and may get another time penalty, so needs to be careful there. But Jacko, half a second behind Chris Johnson, and I'm wondering if he will do a do-or-die moment into the last lap.
We shall see, but yeah, Wet Lemons is probably got it comfortably won now, I would imagine. Let's just see if he gets through this first set. Yes, he does. That's where he must have had the error first time round. Jacko then, I think this is the main battle on this final lap. Jacko within a second of Chris Johnson, and he's about to deploy his DRS, and will he go for it, or will he wait for the second DRS zone?
Yeah, he doesn't look to be using any battery at the moment as he does come up. He looks up the inside there just in case Chris Johnson breaks early, but doesn't look to be, as Jacko seems to be getting a good drive, a fantastic drive here off the second corner. Going to go for the move before the DRS. He's going to use his battery, the last of it. He's into the single-digit percentages on his battery as he does go around the outside. Chris Johnson on the inside there, trying to hang in, but it looks like Jacko has done a fantastic... Oh, look, Jacko's losing some speed there, and Chris Johnson trying to go around the outside, but Jacko seems to have stuck it. And yeah, we did miss Wet Lemons coming over the line with Say Sports and Daniel P. Wheelnut as well, because we were sticking with that battle. But a fantastic move from Jacko there into the final set of corners, as Mike Noon takes a fourth place there, with Mr. John taking a fantastic fifth place here for Red Bull. A little victory weave for him there, as JD is going to come across the line after that spin in sixth place. Jacko will take seventh place and will take sixth place on the road after JD's penalties as well. Chris Johnson in seventh, JD in eighth in the end. Lewis Craig, a race to forget for him, in ninth place after that blunder in the pits, with Blair Grills rounding out our top 10. M. Shep coming around the last set of corners, may lose this. Oh, and he's spun coming into the final corner. I don't know what happened there. I'm not sure what happened there, but he has lost the position to Angel versus Death and Speed Sully. Speed Sully will finish across the line as we don't want to see that coming across the line, M. Shep. But yeah, unfortunate for him there, as the stricken Aston Martin is struggling to get across the line. And yeah, that's an unfortunate end to Abu Dhabi and TGP2. But an absolutely fantastic set of racing after we had the wet qualifying, with Mr. John taking a well-deserved driver of the day there. A wet qualifying, and then we had a dry race with different strategies as well. But yeah, some excellent racing there, Dan.
So the championship standings then, and as he comes onto the podium, you are looking at the new championship leader. Wet Lemons leads the championship now at 168 points after that win, and that's 25 points that he will collect from this race. Lewis Craig finished in ninth, which is only 6 points. So Lewis Craig is on 166 points, Wet Lemons is on 168, and Daniel P. Wheelnut is the outsider on 157. So Wet Lemons leads the championship. This championship, after 3 races, Lewis Craig won the first 3 races. We thought he was going to run away with it, but Wet Lemons is providing the big challenge and now is in the lead.
So yeah, we had a 17-point gap coming into this race, and Wet Lemons has now overtaken. So we're just going to run through your driver order here. Wet Lemons taking a fantastic win for Abu Dhabi there, with Daniel P. Wheelnut in a fantastic second, and Say Sports getting a well-deserved podium there in third. Mike Noon was running in second place at one point, but he'll have to take fourth place, with Mr. John making a fantastic run up the field to take fifth. Jacko in sixth, taking it on the last lap against Chris Johnson in seventh, with JD having that spin in eighth. Lewis Craig, a race to forget, in ninth, and Blair Grills rounding out your top 10. Then we have Bazza in 11th, Speed Sully in 12th, again another spinner. Angel versus Death in 13th, M. Shep spinner in 14th, Mike Schumacher in 15th, Jack Craig in 16th, and Kaya rounding out your order, the 2 last DNFs there. So yeah, wow, it's a fantastic race in Abu Dhabi, something that we would normally see as a finale in our league, but we've changed the order up a bit here with the racing, and yeah, some excellent racing, Dan.
Yeah, that was brilliant stuff, wasn't it? But of course, let's not forget that there was that incident on the first lap with Wet Lemons when he overtook about 3 or 4 cars, and maybe the stewards may well take a look at that after tonight. Obviously, I doubt it will be looked at now. It'll probably be looked at after the second race, and obviously you can look at the TGP series Twitter account for all the updates of if there's any penalties handed out or if it alters the championship standings in any way. But certainly, provisionally, going into this next race, Wet Lemons has a 2 point lead over Lewis Craig with Wheelnut just a few points back. But, well, who knows, maybe we'll get a wet quali in Bahrain now as well.
Yeah, if I'm going to see any if I see a wet quali in Bahrain, this will be unprecedented, and maybe we need to check the lobby settings again just in case that somebody's made a mistake. But yeah, great to see it shake up in TGP2, as we always say. But yeah, as you say, we are going to move on to Bahrain here. They are quite similar tracks in their geography and the fact they are a bit more traction orientated as well. But yeah, you do have to set up your cars differently, and you do have to seem to attack them in quite a different way as well. So, I mean, what makes them so different that drivers do have to go almost opposite ends with setups?
Around Bahrain compared to
compared to Abu Dhabi.
Well, I mean, certainly in Bahrain, there's a lot more long corners, isn't there? And they need a bit more downforce as we get ready to go here. I don't know if the safety car is being turned off. I think the safety car is being left on.
Well, it could be a last-minute decision from the stewards to keep it on.
I was getting a little bit distracted there because I was just looking to see if it was still on, and I think it is. I did message the host to say to turn it off, but we'll see if he. Certainly, when I checked, it was on reduced, but we'll see. We'll see once the session starts.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, can you see the drivers making some serious differences in their setups and things compared to Abu Dhabi here with the difference in the track?
Yeah, most likely, I suspect we will. As well, it's dry, so they won't have to get the wet setups out. We can say that for certain. As let's have a look. Rules and flags. Yeah, the safety car is on. So well, we're gonna have an on safety car for this race. I don't think it was necessarily meant, but we are gonna have the safety car on for this race. Didn't have anything, of course, in the previous race. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, so if it's dry at the moment, so we're going to turn off the tyre detail to give you a bit more space on this screen to spectate here. Dan can be on as much detail as he wants to back us up here. But yeah, Lewis Craig and Kaya out starting their out laps on the soft tyres here. So yeah, let's see how the drivers will do in this qualifying session. Would you say it's more important to get pole position here? Is track position a bit more important in Bahrain compared to Abu Dhabi?
Well, you can still do a lot of overtaking with the DRS, especially in the first sector. You can have quite a lot of battles, but it's a bit of a longer run down to turn one as well at the start of the race. So it's not necessarily the most important thing in the world if you miss out on pole position around here, but we'll see who's got the pace for it as we see how this session progresses. Then obviously the horrible turn 10 corner around here in the middle sector, which can always catch drivers out. It's so difficult to get right, but if you do get it right, you will gain a lot of time on your lap. As we have Lewis Craig out on track, everybody on the soft tyres at the minute. Lewis Craig is out on track. Wet Lemons is also out on track. He's just coming out now, and so is Wheelnut, the three championship contenders. It's Wheelnut who will be the first of the three championship contenders to set a competitive lap time here, I imagine.
Yeah, so considering he's going to be the first to start his competitive lap time, we'll go on board with him. Dan, if you could do the honours to talk us through a lap in Bahrain.
Okay, so here comes Daniel Wheelnut down the back straight, and yeah, I'll just turn him around on himself there. As you see, the DRS is enabled as he heads down into turn one. Brake late as you possibly can, try and clip this apex, which Wheelnut does very nicely indeed. Get on the power and try and be careful through it. You can take a bit more curve through there on that inside curve, but if you take too much, it will be an invalidation. Now there's a small bump here as you go through this awkward turn 4, which can unsettle the car slightly and make it a bit less confident to get on full power, but Daniel P. Wilmot's done well there. Decent first sector, 29.0, as he flies through this middle part of the track. You don't want to go too far out on that curve, unless you will spin the car as he heads on the way now down to that turn 10 that I was mentioning earlier on. Again, this is so difficult to get right. You want to brake sort of on the outside and maybe touch that curve, and that's nicely done through there for Wheelnut. So the next DRS zone now, once again, he enables it. Now you want to get to as far right as possible here as you go into the left-hander. You can go even further right than that and take much more speed into the corner. The Wheelnut losing a little bit of time there. Is he flat through here? Sometimes he's a bit touch and go, but he is absolutely flat through there as he hits the brakes then for what I believe is turn 13. Once again, can be a bit deceiving this corner, a little bit tricky on the exit, especially now at this point of the lap when the tyres are screaming and you're ready for this final corner, or the penultimate corner as it is. But this is technically the final corner, this one here. No problems for Wheelnut though. He's going to be the first driver to set a lap, and it is a 1:29.907. Lewis Craig is directly behind. Will he beat that? Let's see. Yes, he does on a 29.2.
So yeah, maybe Daniel P. Wheelnut having a banker lap there, as drivers do like to do that, especially with the risk of invalidating around Bahrain, especially through this little section here that Lewis Craig is going through. Drivers go a bit wide out there and your lap is lost. So Daniel P. Wheelnut probably got a lot more left in the tank there to set a quicker lap time maybe, but Lewis Craig taking the provisional pole at this stage of the qualifying with 13 and a half minutes to go. Drivers still not all drivers, sorry, have set a lap time just yet. Maybe some invalidations up and down the field. Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, Wet Lemon's first and second sectors were basically identical to Lewis Craig's here on the first lap. So let's see what Lemon's lap is. Lemons goes on pole, but look at that. It's only by 100th of a second. So they were unbelievably equal all the way through that lap. It was 28.714 first sector for Lewis Craig, 28.703 for Wet Lemons, 38.507 for Lewis Craig second sector, 38.512 for Wet Lemons, and 21.982 for Lewis Craig final sector, and a 21.976 for Wet Lemons. So they was so close all through that lap.
Wow, 11 thousandths of a second do split the first and second on the grid at the moment. I don't think that's even blink of an eye that seems to separate them between them. But yeah, great to see close battle up at the front of the field when it comes to qualifying at the moment. I'm sure Lewis Craig and Wet Lemons will be coming into the pits to change their tyres, as Daniel P. Wheelnut, is he going for a second attempt here by the looks of things on the same tyre? An interesting one. Maybe he did make a mistake, but maybe also backing off. I can't quite tell from this camera angle if he is actually going for it, but we'll see what his sector 1 time is. It's 1.2 seconds down, so it looks like he's going to be coming into the pits at the end of this.
Yeah, I think we're in a bit of a slow phase of the session now, where drivers are either coming into the pit lane or on the in laps. I've only got 10 laps on the board though, so maybe there was a few corner cuts going on in the first runs. I think we've got M-Chef on a lap. M-Chef seems to be pushing here in 15th place. Well, I mean, it's not actually classified right now, is he? As we'll see what he can do as he is coming through this turn 10 right now, and a little bit dodgy through there on the curve, but it's okay enough. But obviously had a bit of a shame for Shep in the last race to have that drive through, and I think whoever was furthest ahead out of Shep and was it Mick Schumacher and one other driver, I can't quite remember who it was now, but whoever was the furthest ahead, I think it was Angel Liz's death, the third driver. One of them went early, and then that then triggered the other two, I think, to move as well, to react to that car moving instead of reacting to the start light. So that's how all three of them managed to jump the start. So they will not want to be doing that this time around.
No, I think it was actually an Aston that maybe triggered Abu Dhabi. I'd have to go back and check the footage again, and that's what I remember from it. As M-Chef sets a 1:30.4, so he's going to provisional 8th at the moment, so a decent lap from him. As Daniel P. Wheelnut's still not in the pits yet. It looks like he's just going round and round. I'm not quite sure what he's doing. He's a 10th, almost a 10th and a half up on his best so far, so maybe just trying to get a decent lap time out here on those soft tyres that he went out on first, trying to conserve some tyres maybe for later on in the session or even the race, considering the safety car is on, as he goes quite four-wheel drift through that tricky turn 10. So this is going to be a lap he's going to put in the bin, and maybe time to come in and change those soft tyres, Daniel.
Yeah, I've just noticed that we've got Magic Poop Cannon in the chat, who's obviously not here tonight and was in a possible championship battle, but sadly was unable to race tonight, which is going to significantly hurt his chances. And he's asked for this race to be voided because of the safety car being turned on, but obviously that's not going to happen. But I have to say, I mean, there's probably a higher chance of a safety car around here than in Abu Dhabi, so the safety car shenanigans may still come and surprise us tonight. We've had rain in Abu Dhabi. We may well see a safety car here in Bahrain as well, as just seeing if they've got anybody on a lap right now. Kaya's gone for a spin, and I think most people are just on out laps right now, aren't they?
Yeah, we're on board with Wet Lemons here as he's coming into the third sector just about now. So we'll see if he can improve on his time to make a larger gap to Lewis Craig. Obviously, 11,000 separating these two, which in my eyes would be too close for comfort to really be confident that you're going to take pole position here. We've got 9 minutes left in the session, so drivers having their second true attempt at the bite of the cherry. And we'll go on board with Wet Lemons to see how he does on this lap. So coming up to the first corner, we'll see if he can clip the first apex and make the braking point here. And he hits the brakes quite nicely, and he clips that quite nicely, actually. You don't want to get too much there because it can bump you out wide, and he doesn't take too much curve on that inside of turn 3 either, so doing well here. Let's see what his first sector time will be and how much he may have improved. Coming up to the first sector line, what's it going to be? He's a 10th up, so much better on his first attempt there, from his first attempt there, Dan.
Yeah, that is much better than a 10th up, as you say. We've got Lewis Craig also coming around there. Well, he's about to start his lap in a few moments, so we'll stick with this lap for Wet Lemons. You have to say, at the minute, it looks as though it's going to be these two in the battle for pole. It looked like a bit of a dodgy turn 10 to me there for Wet Lemons. It only caught the tail end of it, but it didn't look great. But let's see if he's managed to hold on to his advantage as he crosses the second sector point. He's about to come through it now. First sector up by a 10th. Second sector, he's improved a little bit more, almost 2/10 then, so 107.0 at this point of the lap. This is so close between these two. We've got Sweet Sonny just going to third place, but how much will Wet Lemons improve by? Lewis Craig's come back into the pit lane. Oh, he's left the session. Oh no. Hopefully that's not going to be a disconnection. I think it might be, because he starts his lap, and Wet Lemons puts in at 28.9, while his teammate, his championship rival, possibly having some internet trouble. That's not what we want to see.
Not what we want to see at all. I think Lewis Craig was coming around turn 4 just then as he did disconnect, so we didn't even get a shot of what his first sector would be, unfortunately, but hopefully he can reconnect into the session and be able to go out, and he has joined, so hopefully he'll be able to go out and make that second attempt on his qualifying time. But a close one there for Lewis Craig, and the last thing he wants to do now is allow Wet Lemons to take victory here and him not be able to defend it at all. So glad he's been able to rejoin on there. Anybody currently on a lap at the moment, Dan?
We've got Wheelnut just starting a lap now, and Wheelnut obviously is the other main guy to watch for in the championship right now. So we'll see what his first sector is going to be. Wet Lemons' first sector was a 28.5, and Wheelnuts, let's see if we can get in the pole battle, 28.8. So I think the drivers just a little bit slower than Wet Lemons and Lewis Craig. I think they're obviously the two main pace setters here. The other guy's just a few tenths behind. But let's see if Wheelnuts can possibly have a bit of a better second sector. We watched his first lap on board, didn't we, remember? And Wheelnuts, as he goes through turn 10, looks a little bit better this time round. Now, if he just needs to move to the right a little bit more, because he can take so much more space. He can go even further to the right than that Wheelnut. He can get more time. But again, he's just he's the 10th there that he's missing out on. But we'll see what the second sector is, and it's a 107.5, and he's 3/10 up on this lap. But this will not be enough to get anywhere near the lap set by Wet Lemons, I imagine. But let's see what he can do in this final corner. Could he possibly get himself onto the second row of the grid, maybe? Let's see. The DRS is deployed all the way to the line, and it is a 29.4. And yes, it does put him into third place right now, but still, a couple of tenths off Lewis Craig and Wet Lemons. Lewis Craig is back in the lobby, isn't he? But he's still in the pit lane.
He is, yeah. Daniel P. Wheelnut, still not a place to be sniffed at there in third place, despite leaving plenty of time on the table to be gained. So, yeah, if he can get a lightning start compared to the front two runners, he could still well be in this. As we're going to go on board with M-Shep, who seems to be the only one who's out at the moment, close to setting a lap time at the moment. Speed Sully now starting an out lap 2 in fourth place, 129.6. He could well easily get into the top 3 on his next attempt. Drivers now waiting or now coming out probably to set their final lap times of the session. And all to play for here, Dan.
It is indeed. I just hope that Lewis Craig is able to get out there as well. But as you say, yeah, quite a quiet stage now of the session as we await these all-important final runs then with 4 minutes to go in the session. And I have had confirmation, by the way, that it is going to be a dry race, unsurprisingly. But, of course, after Abu Dhabi qualifying, you can still never be too sure, as I think we'll look out with fuel here as he's making his way back to the pit lane. So it's going to have to be a quick turnaround for him in the pit lane to get in, get the tyres changed, get back in the garage, get the car refueled, and get back out there for the final run.
Yeah, I think he'll be able to get turned around relatively quickly here with 3.5 minutes to go in the session. So he'll get another attempt with those fresh set of tyres and more fuel on board as M-Shep starts his lap now. Let's just stay on the broadcast cam with him at the moment as we see Mike Noon coming out of the pits here to start his final attempt as well. So M-Shep coming up to turn 4. DRS is wide open. Let's see how he takes this. We're going on board with him. Let's see how he can take this. He clips it quite nicely. Don't let the car run out too wide there. He could have maybe gone out a bit wider to get a bit more time, but he goes across here and he's just under a tenth down on his personal best, Dan.
I think this has been a great lap for M-Shep. He was a little bit wide as well through the S's there, got a little bit off the racing line, probably lost a bit of time as well. So maybe this is shaping up to be the best lap by M-Shep, or who knows, maybe he will suddenly find a load of time towards the end of the lap. We've got Wet Lemons out then, so Wet Lemons is going to be the first driver to set a lap. Still haven't seen any movement in that Red Bull garage for Lewis Craig. Hopefully he can get out there. As M-Shep, what's his second sector going to be? And has he found time or not? Let's see. Yes, he has. He's 3 tenths up, so ignore everything I say, because M-Shep is obviously on an improvement here. Although, even if he was to only improve by 3 tenths here, he would not actually move up any positions, because he's 4 tenths away from Sale Sports in 8th place right now. Through the final corner, let's see what he can do. But the DRS deploys. He's going to cross the line, M-Shep, and he will stay in 9th place.
He got a great turn 10 there during his lap, so maybe that's something that gave him that 3.5 tenth gap. As Speed Sully seems to have backed out of his lap here, or maybe he's just about to start one. I can't quite tell, but Speed Sully going very slow up to the last corner as he comes round here to start his final attempt. Wet Lemons now actually as well, coming up to start his final attempt as well. So we're going to go on board. We're going to stay on board with Speed Sully here at the moment, just to see what he's going to do here. So he goes nicely into turn 1, doesn't clip it too close, but you don't want to clip it overly as it will push you out wide. DRS goes wide open for Speed Sully as he's coming up. Stay over to the left-hand side to maximise that corner speed. Nicely on the curb there, cuts it quite nicely too. He could go a bit wider out there to maybe get a bit more speed. Comes across the first sector line. He's a tenth and a half down on his fastest attempt, so he's going to have to do something special through sector 2 and sector 3 in order to challenge for those podium places.
Just watching Will Evans' first sector here. Let's see what it's going to be, and he's slightly down, only by 200ths, but it is down nonetheless. But we'll see what Evans can do in his final lap. Lewis Craig is coming through the final sector now as well. Daniel Wheelworth is also starting his lap. It's probably just between these 3 drivers. Probably you would say maybe just between the top 2, but let's see what happens. Wet Lemons is on his way down this back straight now with a DRS to play. Will he find any time in this middle sector? I'm pretty sure this is the first time this season that anybody other than Lewis Craig is in the lead of the championship. Can Wet Lemons solidify that lead with a dominant pole position here? Jake Davis has set a good lap to go into third. Wet Lemons is 3/10 up. He's had a fantastic second sector. Is this pole almost looking like in the bag now for Wet Lemons? We'll see what happens as he approaches the final corner.
And he takes it nice and wide out there, coming through the penultimate corner, as you said before, Dan, round the last corner. He's not going out wide there. He's going to get DRS wide open on the line. What's it going to be here? It's a 128.5. A fantastic lap there for Wet Lemons. But we're going to go on board with...
Wheelnut's the next one.
Wheelnut. Yes,
Wheelnut's the next one. I just want to see what his middle sector is. It's a 107.1. And Wet Lemons was a 106.7 at this stage. So at the minute, it's looking good for Wet Lemons, but we've still got Lewis Craig to come as well.
That's the fastest second sector, purple sector for Daniel P. Wheelnut as he comes around the final corner. Takes it quite tidy and quite nicely there. Not sure if it's the fastest way, but he's going to have DRS wide open. He's going to come across the line. What's it going to be? It's second place at 129.014, but we've still got Lewis Craig on a lap as well.
And he's actually slower. He's slower than what Wheelnut was at this stage of the lap. So Lewis Craig is going to need an epic final corner if he just wants to make the front row. So we've got two big championship contenders. They're both ahead of him. Can he at least split them right now as he crosses the line? No, he cannot. Lewis Craig doesn't actually improve on that lap. And he's actually being out-qualified by his brother. And that sends him down another position.
It's going from bad to worse for Lewis Craig here, as he's only going to start no higher than fourth place. Mike Noon has invalidated as well. Jacko on a lap at the moment. He seems to have backed off though. So F1 Bazza, he seems to have invalidated too. So that looks to be our session over. Lewis Craig in fourth place. Wet Lemons in first. Daniel P. Wheelnut in second, Dan. So it's all to play for here. And shaken up, Jack Craig, I wonder if he's going to try and help his brother out in the race. Even though they're racing on two different teams, they're still brothers and they might help each other out here. But yeah, Lewis Craig has some work to do in the race, Dan.
He really does. He has got some serious work to do in this race. And, well, Wet Lemons has set a pretty dominant pole position lap there, hasn't he? By almost half a second. Wheelnut pulled it out the bag at the end, though. He improved quite a bit. But yeah, look at that. Lewis Craig now down in fourth for this race. He's going to need to have the kind of first lap that Wet Lemons got in Abu Dhabi.
Indeed, so we'll quickly run through. So Wet Lemons, Daniel P. Wheelnut and Jack Craig is our three positions at the top, with Lewis Craig in fourth, JD in fifth, Mike Noon in sixth, Speed Sully in seventh with Jacko in eighth, Chris Johnson in ninth and Say Sports rounding out your top 10. And then we have M. Shep, Bazza, Mick Schumacher, Angel vs. Steph, Kaya, Mr. John and Blair Grills rounding out your order there. So yeah, as you said, Lewis Craig, some work to do there. He's going to have to get a fantastic start and really, really get on that pace. But I can't see with the pace that Wet Lemon set in the qualifying if he's going to even be challenged in this race, Dan.
Yeah, I have to say, if he gets a good start, he may well be away and gone here. But let's see what the tyre choice is as well, of course. And don't forget that we do have the safety car on for this race as well. So even if Wet Lemons was to suddenly have a massive lead, it could easily be wiped out in one moment. But yeah, I think Lewis Craig, see what the tyres are going to be. I mean, the medium tyre is not a great tyre around here, as I think we all discovered yesterday during the TGP1 race. But let's see what's going to happen on the run down to turn one if Wet Lemons can get the start that he needs to help him send into a dominant lead.
Indeed. So, yeah, we've got some soft tyre runners. Got 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. We actually have Daniel P. Wheelnut on the mediums by the looks of things. And it's lights out and away they go. And Daniel P. Wheelnut doesn't get the greatest start, as Jack Craig's got a fantastic start on Daniel P. Wheelnut here. And he's going to be challenging him. Lewis Craig seems to be still behind with JD as well. And Jack Craig is going for first position. He makes contact with Wet Lemons. Wet Lemons is actually at the moment. It's gone down the order. But Daniel P. Wheelnut coming back at Jack Craig. And JD on this contact again. And it seems to be that somebody's been spun in the background. Mike Noon spun in the background. Oh my goodness me. And JD has actually got that position off Daniel P. Wheelnut now and is now challenging Jack Craig and goes ahead. Oh my goodness, I can't really keep track of it, Dan.
Well, incredible stuff there by Jake Davis. I was here in the lead. Oh, Jack Craig's left the session. So Jack Craig actually managed to get off the line, and he said, take that after what happened in Abu Dhabi. He basically done exactly what Wet Lemons did in Abu Dhabi, and then he suddenly left the session. All of a sudden, that's such a shame for him. It's fantastic for Jake Davis.
Daniel P. Wheelnut gets in the half spin there. Sorry to
he's got a
interrupt.
corner cut. He's got a penalty for getting the place when he had that moment.
And he's now challenging with Jacko and Lewis Craig up to second place. JD in first place. Wet Lemons down in fifth. So not the cleanest start for the drivers, and we're lucky not to have a safety car after all of that contact and all of that debris on the track. But it is really shaken up in TGP2 here. Lewis Craig has turned his night around in Bahrain and could well be still in the title fight after the end of this evening. But yeah, Chris Johnson making a fantastic gain up to third there, Dan.
Well, I mean, it's just especially disastrous for Wheelnut, because I didn't see the half spin that he said he had, but obviously when it happened, he cut the corner and gained the place, and we'll have to save that penalty as well. He'll be able to get that taken away. Wet Lemon's going for Speed Sully here for fourth place.
There's contact! He's moved around!
Spin. The stewards may look at that, and there's another card off. Say Sports has been sent off as well, thanks to Wet Lemons. This is not going well for him.
No, and it seems to get him from bad to worse. He's definitely going to get a penalty for that, I'd imagine, as that was clear cut on our screen. But we'll leave that up to the stewards to make his decision. And Wet Lemons just needs to just calm down a bit here and try and gain his positions back with a cool head. But Daniel P. Wheelnut, despite that 5-second penalty, has got past his teammate into fifth place and is only 7.5 tenths behind Wet Lemons. I'm not sure if Wet Lemons got any damage from that, Dan.
Well, the one with Speed Sully was probably a slam dunk, isn't it, you would say? I mean, he did just seem to tag him round. The one with Say Sports, I think Say Sports actually lagging quite a bit, so maybe lag played the part in that one. But, wow, some of the driving tonight has been absolutely fantastic to watch. I mean, it's incredibly exciting, you have to say. It's a bit risky, and it certainly feels quite personal, especially on that first lap there with Jack Craig. Yeah. I mean, that surely was just payback for Abu Dhabi. It had to have been, because it affected Jack Craig massively in the race. As Blake Hills is out of the race now. Could this be a safety car? Because I think it's at... I think he's retired on the track, hasn't he? So it probably won't be a safety car. So we start lap 3. Jake Davis, incredibly, is in the lead of this race. I don't think anybody would have expected that. Lewis Craig in second. I'm running very deep there. Lewis Craig into turn 1. That might allow Chris Johnson to get within DRS.
So I'm just on board with this gaggle of cars, Mr. John, Angel Vista, Speed, Sully and Bazza, as this seems to be hotting up and seems to be the closest battle on track. Mr. John's got his DRS open on the back of M-Shep, but I think he's too far back at the moment. We've got some fantastic moves happening here between Speed, Sully and Bazza. Speed Sully will go up the inside of Bazza here to take back his position and try and recover his Bahrain race after that awful start. But yeah, still some fantastic racing up and down the field. But Wet Lemons now within DRS range of Chris Johnson.
Yes, he is. So Wet Lemons, I mean, we know he's got that underlying pace around here. We all saw it in qualifying, so we'll see what Wet Lemons can do. I mean, I wonder if it might be best for... I almost wonder if it might be best for Wet Lemons to pit now, maybe even, although, as you said, the medium tyres is not great, but at least he will be in a bit of fresh air for a little bit, clean air, and he may well be able to pull in some decent lap times on the medium tyre, because he would probably still be able to go quicker than everybody else would manage on the mediums as well, and it would possibly help him jump Chris Johnson maybe and get quite close to Lewis Craig, but maybe still about a lap or two too early to come into the pit lane, and he does indeed stay out. He's 6 tenths behind Chris Johnson. He's going to have DRS to play there. He's only got 30% battery though. Chris Johnson's got 60%.
Yes, but he does have that underlying pace on the field anyway. If he can get past Chris Johnson here, he'll be within a undercut window of Lewis Craig and maybe even JD, as he does now go for the move and seems to breeze past Chris Johnson here. So yeah, now he's within the undercut window of the top two. And Chris Johnson actually making a comeback here, but doesn't seem to have the legs to make it back. But yeah, this could be a good position for Wet Lemons to take the win in Bahrain, but will he actually take the win after the stewards look at those incidents, especially with Speed Sully? Sorry, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but it could well win on the track here, Dad. Yeah,
we shall see how it goes then. But Chris Johnson has not letting Wet Lemons get away with here. He's still within DRS. He's still only half a second behind, so maybe he could still play a factor. But I need to try and see how many TGP2 races JD has won, because he certainly is looking pretty good in this one so far. He's managing to keep that gap pretty stable to Lewis Craig in second place right now.
Indeed, as Chris Johnson, as you say, still not letting him go, half a tenth behind. We've also got Angel versus Death behind Speed Sully here, very, very close as well. And we've got M-Shep as well within DRS range of Jacko. So still some good battles going up and down the field, as we actually have Jacko now coming into the pits on the soft tyres. So will this trigger the soft tyre runners to come in?
Is in.
And Wet Lemons is in as well. So Wet Lemons,
crucially,
going for that undercut on JD and Lewis Craig, they'll have to respond pretty quickly in order to not lose too much time out there. But yeah, Daniel P. Wheelnut, the medium tyre runner, we haven't seen any safety car yet, but this could play into his hands if a safety car comes out when the soft runners have made their pit stops without a safety car, and hopefully to mitigate that 5-second penalty, which I'm sure he'll have to serve in the pits. I was just thinking if he could try and get that removed by the stewards, but if he gets served in the pits, he's got nothing to do. Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah.
Well, it's worked out well that for Wet Lemons. He's managed to come out just ahead of Kaya, and he has got 5 seconds ahead of him of nobody, as Chris Johnson and Lewis Craig are side by side here. Does Lewis Craig made a bit of a mistake, because Chris Johnson's suddenly right there. Oh, he nearly hits him. He's right behind him. He's pushing him through the corner almost. Lewis Craig suddenly seems to be struggling massively out of nowhere. And he made
Lewis Craig's
he's off the championship contender, going back for the lead. A spun.
Lewis Craig looks like he got on that curb on the inside, and he's just spun round, and he's just trying to recover it now, as he's probably overheated those tyres going through that long right-hander. Lewis Craig has gone even worse than what we could imagine from Abu Dhabi. That's going to bring Wet Lemons right into this race again for the championship lead.
I mean, Wet Lemons will surely jump him now, won't he, as Lewis Craig does unsurprisingly come in. So I wonder if the tyres had just totally gone for him and he spun the car. Tell you what, it's looking better and better, this for Wheelnut, you know, especially when he puts the soft tyres on. So where is Wet Lemons? Wet Lemons is coming down the main straight now. Lewis Craig is about to come out of the pit lane. In fact, he's only driving past the Haas garage now, and Wet Lemons will easily go through. Wet Lemons going to be side by side with Chris Johnson, in fact. Wet Lemons just ahead of Chris Johnson as well. We won't have to worry about trying to overtake him while Chris Johnson gets the tyres up to temperature. Lewis Craig is way down the field. He's only going out the pit lane right now, and that spin is absolutely terrible for him. Just when it was looking like he was going to get back in the lead of the championship, he's thrown it away.
Indeed, so Wet Lemons quite crucially getting in front of Chris Johnson there for a bit of free air, as he's got his teammate Mike Noon in front of him, who I'm sure won't put up too much of a challenge considering the championship battle that's in here. Yeah, Mike Noon pulls over to the outside now, lets his teammate through quite nicely. So Wet Lemons seems to have been able to recover this, despite that penalty possibly looming over his head that the stewards might hand out at the end. But we'll see what happens when that comes. But Speed Sully right on the back of Mr. John here for 4th place.
He is indeed. Jake Davis has won 2 TGP2 races in history, and he is now the race leader here, and he is in the pit lane, and he is, if he gets this is a good stop. It's looking very, very good for him, I have to say, although let's not forget that Wet Lemons does have great pace, and maybe he's going to put a late charge on here, as he's right behind Mick Schumacher here, and that should be an easy move, I imagine. Wet Lemons, oh my god, Mick Schumacher getting incredibly close there, making him have to go almost on the grass there, Wet Lemons. Don't go for a dive bomb, Mick Schumacher. Don't go and send it. Oh, he thought about it. He thought about it. Wet Lemons would have seen that in his mirrors there and had a minor heart attack, but he should be able to pull away now.
Yeah, apologies. We were watching the Speed Sully Mr. John overtake going on there at the moment whilst this was happening. But yeah, it seems JD has come out just ahead of Wet Lemons here. 2.8 seconds Wet Lemons is behind JD, but I'm sure that Wet Lemons will be closing that gap. He's now down to 2.4 seconds already. So Wet Lemons on a charge now for the net lead of this race. Daniel P. Wheelnut out there in front, 3.7 seconds ahead of M-Shep, also on the medium tyres. So the medium tyre runners dominating the top 5 positions, I think. I'm not sure what tyre
Yeah,
Angel is.
I mean, these guys haven't pit yet. The top 4 haven't pit, but I mean, yeah, I did mention that it was looking good for Wheelnut, but of course I forgot that he still will have to save that penalty, won't he? That horrible penalty, which I did not see the incident, but I'm guessing he almost certainly is not a deserved penalty, but it's just being given to.
Tyres retired.
Tyres cashed out. Wheelnut's just come into the pit lane now. We've got a safety car out here. Is it a VSC? I'm trying to have a look at one of the boards just as Wheelnut comes in the pit lane and saves his penalty. I'm still trying to see some of the boards. It's a full safety car. The safety car's out on track.
It's a full safety car. Wheelnut is going to be in a fantastic position here. JD's obviously taking the net lead here. Wet Lemons as well. But Daniel P. Wheelnut, will he get ahead of Chris Johnson? He's not going to get ahead of Chris Johnson. And so he's now into a fourth position on the alternate tyres as well.
Yeah,
he is in an excellent position.
And he saved his penalty as well.
Exactly. He is in an amazing position. Wow. What a turn of events that we've had again in this race.
I can't quite remember, because I don't really race with safety cars in this game anymore. I can't quite remember if it actually lets you save the penalty once when there's a safety car out. So if he stayed that one more lap there, he might be in a bit of trouble. But Wheelnut has saved his 5-second penalty. Hopefully nobody was on the rear jack already pulling the car up, because we all know what kind of mess that can create. And Wheelnut should be able to get away without any further penalties in this race. And as you say, on the soft tyres, he was second in qualifying. He's on the better tyres. He may well be able to race a victory.
Indeed, and I think he was actually serving his penalty before the safety car was deployed, so I think he's going to get away with that one. M-Shep, will he peel into the pits now to go on those soft tyres? I'd imagine he will. Speed Sully, 4.7 seconds behind, but obviously under safety car conditions, he'll surely come into the pits as well with Mr. John. But will they? I don't think they'll be able to get out ahead of JD or Wet Lemons or Chris Johnson here to try and mess up the order a bit. So I think we're going to see JD take the lead yet again as the top 2 drivers come in. Mr. John coming in as well. So, yeah, I thought he was going to stay out and try something a bit different there, but no, it doesn't seem to be the way. But yeah, let's just double check that these drivers are going to get ahead here.
No, I don't think they will. I tell you what, they're actually Wheelnut.
Yeah.
Is Shep going to maybe jump Wheelnut? I think he has, hasn't he? Wow. So M-Shep has actually jumped Wheelnut in the safety car here, and in fact, maybe he could go for the win.
What?
Jake Davis has been disqualified. He was on for the TGP2 win.
I don't know what happened there.
He's been disqualified for ignoring a yellow flag, and this is the problem with the safety car. Fix the safety car, Go-Masters, because it causes all sorts of trouble.
Jack Craig's disqualified.
Jack Craig's been disqualified for multiple penalties, but he had disconnected from the session, hadn't he? And he was rejoined in this connect, so not as important necessarily. But Jake Davis, who was fighting for the 3rd win in TGP2, it's the surprising leader of this race. I don't know what's happened there, but ignoring the yellow flag, the message said, that is such a shame.
That is a shame, and maybe the drivers are experiencing the same issues I experienced in TGP1 last night, where there was no notification of safety cars and your delta either. So maybe the drivers having issues with their telemetry when it comes to the safety car and the messaging. So, as you said, got to get Cody's and EA to fix this game, because this is just unacceptable in 2023. But that aside, Jake Davies is out of the session. We've got Wet Lemons, who has taken the lead again, with Chris Johnson right on the back of him. What are the tyres at the moment? Chris Johnson on the medium tyres by the looks of things. Wet Lemons as well.
Chris Johnson is on the medium. Chris Johnson's tyres are a lap fresher than where Wet Lemons, and then obviously you've got the soft runners of M-Shep. I mean, M-Shep, can he win this? Can M-Shep win this on the soft tyres? Wheelnut, of course, also on the soft tyres. You know, but let's not forget, Wet Lemons was on pole position by half a second. He has got pace, but Wheelnut is on the better tyre. M-Shep is on the better tyre. Let's see how this restart goes. Anything could happen really from here.
So on board with Chris Johnson and see when Wet Lemons will make the jump. Hopefully he doesn't make it too late, because it could bunch up the pack and create more problems down the field. But Wet Lemons leaving it nice late, and he's jumped now. So Chris Johnson, he's got a great jump on Chris Johnson, and M-Shep's got a fantastic jump on Chris Johnson here. And then we've got Speed Tully on Daniel P. Wheelnut. It's going to be side by side going into the first corner, and it could even be 3 wide if they get close enough. But yeah, M-Shep looks to be making the move on Chris Johnson here. Daniel P. Wheelnut defending from Speed Sully and stays ahead for the moment. But Chris Johnson, he gets a half spin and he nearly goes off the track, and Daniel P. Wheelnut is through. M-Shep has kept this as well, and Speed Sully through as well. Mr. Johnson, Jacko through, and Chris Johnson's had a horrible restart on this safety car. But Wet Lemons a second ahead already, Dan.
Yeah, he's going, but M-Shep is in a fantastic second place. Very great move by him. We've got Jacko and Mr. John going side by side. And Lewis Craig, who, of course, let's not forget, is back in this race now, really, for a decent result. Thanks to that safety car, he is right behind Chris Johnson now. As you say, Chris Johnson, absolute shocker of a restart for him. Not as shocking as his teammate, though, say, I suppose, is actually out the race. But Mr. John, wow, going crazy with the defensive moves there. But M-Shep is flying on those softs, especially in that middle sector, of course, one with all the corners. And he is less than a second behind Wet Lemons now. If he can just stay within there for another lap, once the DRS gets enabled, he could be on for a win here, and that would be absolutely unbelievable. Lewis Craig, is he going to try and get past Chris Johnson? Oh, he nearly hit the back of him there. But Lewis Craig has got to try and make the most of this. He's been given a bit of a gift here with this safety car. He can recover slightly. Can he make the moves, though?
That's going to be the question here. And we've got Daniel P. Wheelnut right on the back of M-Shep. We've got Speed Sully on the back of them as well, almost staying within the DRS range at the moment. Mr. John's still within this fight as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, will M-Shep be able to keep that pace up for when the DRS is enabled for these drivers. Lap 11. We've got 3 laps to go after this. M-Shep goes incredibly wide. Not sure what happened there, but Daniel P. Wheelnut will be wondering what's going on there and if he's going to get any kind of penalty for doing that, because he seems to gain a lot of time there from doing it on the. But yeah, Wet Lemons seems to be increasing the gap here now a bit.
Yeah, well, I think that error did not help M-Shep, obviously, but still, again, look, in the middle sector, he's managing to make those soft tyres work. Now, of course, that's not going to last forever, but he will have DRS on this next lap. If he can be in this position that he is in right now, in this DRS zone on the next lap, who knows what could happen for M-Shep. M-Shep has won 2 TGP2 races in history, just like JD did, of course, but we know what happened to him. But M-Shep could still very much make it a third here if he can get past Wet Lemons. Wet Lemons on those medium tyres. Lewis Craig is still stuck behind Chris Johnson, so Lewis Craig not making progress either. I wonder if Lewis Craig might actually feel like maybe he should have put a fresh set of softs on during that safety car, and maybe it would have helped him slightly. But here comes M-Shep. DRS. Well, he'll be able to use DRS on the run to turn 4. Only at the end of this straight, he will hit a detection point, and he may well be able to close in. He sets the fastest lap. He's got 36% energy. Wet Lemons only has 17% because the DRS detection now.
Oh, he's going for it. He's going with this contact. Oh, my goodness me. And Wet Lemons has managed to stay ahead for the moment. M-Shep is still ahead as well. Wheel banging as they're going up. DRS open for M-Shep, and he's using the battery as he's going up. Is he going to get this move? Nicely done. He is. He's going to stay ahead. Wet Lemons is going to try and do the cutback, and great defending there from M-Shep to place his car well, and that's M-Shep taking the lead from Wet Lemons. Daniel P. Wheelnut now coming back into the mix as he did drop out of the DRS zone for the moment, but will Wet Lemons come back at M-Shep?
And Lewis Craig has got 7th ahead of Chris Johnson, so Lewis Craig up into 7th place, but I don't think M-Shep meant that at turn 1. I think he didn't realise there was such a speed difference. I don't think he actually anticipated going for the move at turn 1 there, and suddenly panicked and had nowhere to go, and the car's touched him. Really, that could have ended a lot worse, but it did not. And that's the second time Wet Lemons has been dive bombed at turn 1 in this race, but Wet Lemons is still going to try and fight for it. He is still within a second on those medium tyres. He's got Daniel P. Wheeler behind him as well, though, of course, who's also on the soft tyres. So this could go any way, really. This could go any way, because we've got the faster driver of all 3 of them on the difficult tyres, really, I suppose, at this stage of the race. So he's going to have DRS here, Wet Lemons, but so will Wheelnut.
So yeah, we're going to be on board with Wheelnut and seeing what he can do. We've got Wet Lemon's gaining on M-Shep. Wet Lemons is going to go to the left here. M-Shep on the right-hand side. He defends it hard, and Wet Lemon's going to try and stick it around the outside. He gets the better drive because Wet Lemons has had to take a wider line there. Daniel P. Wheelnut still on the back of this. We're going to stay on board because it's a fantastic shot from the rear. See what they're going to do. M-Shep defending hard. Is Wet Lemon's going to stick it around the outside here? M-Shep up the inside. There's a bit of wheel contact. Is M-Shep going to get a good better drive here? They're going to go side by side into turn 5 and 6 here. And Wet Lemon's... Oh, there's contact and M-Shep is rounded it. Daniel P. Wheelnut has lost his front wing. I don't quite know what happened there and who's at fault there, but that is... Sorry, Dan.
M-Shep, I think he should have backed out of that one. I think he should have saw that one. It was a gap that was always going to close. And Speed Sully gets ahead of Wheelnut, then Wheelnut, as you say. So that is actually, so Wet Lemons, it's actually helped him in a way. Well, it's helped him, obviously, in terms of getting back in the lead of the race. But also, Wheelnut, one of his championship contenders, now has no front wing. So it's been a weird race for Wheelnut. Suddenly it looked like it was going to be a disaster for him when he got the penalty. Then it looked like he could win it. And now he's got no front wing and his championship hopes are going to take a monumental blow. Well, I wonder if he'll try and do the final lap with no front wing. I would. He may as well. But Lewis Craig now up into 6th place. And at this rate, well, will his teammate move over for him? His teammate could move over for him. That'll put him 5th. And then Wet Lemons has got no front wing. That'll put him 4th. He may well still manage to get a podium here if M-Shep's got damage as well.
So M-Shep looks to have a fully complete front wing, so maybe not having as much damage. He is on the back of Speed Sully here and seems to have the better pace at the moment.
Jacko's trying to go for Lewis Craig. Mr. John got out the way, but they're all side by side now going through turn 3. Somehow they don't touch. Oh, now you do touch him. Lewis Craig nearly goes off the road. They're still side by side on the run turn 4.
Yeah, so Lewis Craig up the inside here. Jacko breaks later. Jacko going around the outside. Lewis Craig gets a better drive. There's a bit of wheel contact as Jacko going off the track. Are they going to go side by side through turns 5 and 6? Jacko almost makes contact again. And oh my goodness me, they are very, very close here. Will Mr. John go up the inside? Mr. John's up the inside. Mr. John's going
Lewis
for
Craig.
it.
That's Lewis Craig up the inside.
Sorry, Lewis Craig's going up the inside. Apologies there. And is he going to stick around the outside here? He's going to, yeah, Mr. John placed that car quite nicely. It looks, and Jacko placed the car quite nicely as well. But is Mr. John trying to hold up Jacko here for Lewis Craig? I'm not sure. But Jacko's going to go around the outside. He's going to do the dummy. An incredible move there from Jacko. Wow. He is doing incredible moves here and seems to be getting the job done as Mr. John still defending around the outside. Oh my goodness, that was quite close and he was lucky not to get on the inside, but Jacko now going back up the inside and doesn't quite get it, but has he got enough battery there? He's got very, very low percentage of battery and Mr. John not using it at the moment, but Jacko doing everything he can. Will he make a dive bomb into the final corner here? No, he doesn't. He thinks better of it, and it looks like it's going to finish like this as Wet Lemons does actually cross the line, but we're going to stick with this action as we've got Lewis Craig coming up now. Is Lewis Craig going to make an attempt here? Oh, my goodness me. Wow. Oh, wow. That was a close finish there for the drivers. My goodness me. Sorry, we missed Wet Lemons coming across the line there to take his win, and yeah, sorry about that.
All that battling actually it helped Wheelnut massively because he managed to do that final lap with no front wing and did not lose any other position, so he stayed in 4th place. But I think Wheelnut will have hoped for quite a bit more in that race, but somehow after all that madness, it is actually the guy who was consistently the quickest in qualifying by a long way around here who takes the victory, and Wet Lemons is doing a victory dance, and so he should, because he's going to have some lead in the championship now. Lewis Craig finishing that race down in 7th. Mr. John as well finishing ahead of him. Mr. John, his teammate as well, of course. He did try and move over for him, but on that final lap, he just suddenly all started battling, and Lewis Craig was in the end the guy who finished last in that battle. 7th place for Lewis Craig, 4th for Wheelnut. The win for Wet Lemons. He's going to have a big lead heading into next week.
Yes, but we've got to remember the stewards will be probably looking at that incident they had with Speed Sully earlier on in the session, and he might lose the win from this.
True. And Dhabi as well, of course, the turn 1 at turn 5 was it, the dive bomb.
Indeed, so all still to kind of be worked out.
Very
so please,
unofficial.
Yeah, tune into the TGP Twitter to understand where we are at with the standings at the end of the race. But we'll run through your order here. So we've got Wet Lemons taking the win provisionally at the moment with Speed Sully in 2nd and M-Shep recovering despite being spun there in 3rd place. good podium for him, and driver of the day, well deserved in my opinion as well. Daniel P. Wilnot in fourth, hoping to get a bit more, but lost his front wing and managed to recover to the end there with Mr. John in fifth. Jacko not quite being able to make it to get that fifth position off him, but he'll take sixth place with Lewis Craig in seventh. Another race to forget for him. Chris Johnson in eighth. Not sure what happened to him there, but Bazza in ninth and Mike Noon rounding out your top 10. Then we have Mick Schumacher in 11th, Angel versus Death in 12th, Say Sports in 13th, JD, another race to forget for him in 14th after being disqualified. I wonder what happened there. Not quite sure. It'd be interesting to hear from him about that. But then Kyra in 15th, Blair Grails in 16th, and Jack Craig also losing out to what seems to be a safety car error as well, rounding out your order. But yeah, some fantastic, excellent racing from the drivers tonight, and what could be one of the most shaken up races that I've ever commentated on in TGP2. And yeah, as I said before, M. Shep taking that driver of the day from the game, but I'd probably say M. Shep making a masterclass move under the safety car to go onto those soft tyres and challenge for the win. He's going to be my driver of the day for Bahrain. How about you, Dan?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'd be tempted to go for JD, to be honest, but of course he didn't quite see how it ended for him. I mean, if he overtook the safety car, then obviously he will not get driver of the day. But if it was an unfair disqualification, then I think it's quite harsh, because you do wonder what he could have managed to do in that race. But M. Shep, yeah, I have to say, that spin that he had with the Wet Lemons, he just tagged the side of Wet Lemons' car, and really Wet Lemons was ahead at that point, and that was a move that was never really going to work at that moment. He should have just backed off and waited for the next DRS zone, and that's what caused Wilnot to lose his front wing as well. Of course, he will also feel like he could have had a better result in this race as well. There's a lot of stories from this race, a lot of stories from tonight in general. We had a wet Abu Dhabi quali an hour ago, incredibly, believe it or not. But yeah, and Speed Sully, of course, who got spun, didn't he, by Wet Lemons early on in the race, actually comes through and finishes in second. But yeah, so the current standings then, just before we go, Wet Lemons is on 193 points, Lewis Craig is on 174, Wilnot is on 169. But as you mentioned, there will be a lot of investigations to come, I imagine, and we'll have to check the TGP Twitter and the TGP website for the official standings a bit later tonight.
Yes, so the gap between Wet Lemons and Lewis Craig could be large, it could be smaller, we could be very, very tight here. It'd be interesting as well to work out afterwards what the constructors were looking like, as it was 3 points coming into tonight that separated the top three teams. But yeah, just as you thought it started to calm down a bit, it is spicing up as we get towards the season closer. And yeah, the racing is getting harder and it's getting better and better as we go through the season. So definitely want to tune in for next week. So just to let you know, next rounds are going to be at Singapore and Italy next week. And yeah, I'm sure that'll spit out some incredible racing as well. Dan, any final thoughts before we leave for the evening?
Tune in next week, that's all I'd say, really, because Singapore, we didn't even race at Singapore last season, so I think that's going to be quite unpredictable. And Italy is always exciting, of course, with the DRS drag fest that turns into. Always very, very exciting, high speeds, great overtakes, great battling, and this championship battle looks like it's going to go all the way to the wire. Indeed, Italy as well, turn one, lap one, always spits out some drama there as well. So definitely want to tune in for. But thank you, Dan the Man, for your co-commentary tonight. I've been Mr. Ciapelli. Please tune in next week for those next two rounds where the title fight is far from over and the constructors fight is far from over as well. But as always, see you on PS4.